Hi, everyone. I'm Diane Brady. I'm here with
Mr. Michael del Castillo.
Mr. Michael del Castillo, talking about illicit activities, although they're legal activities.
They are, yeah. It's kind of a fun story. It's legal money laundering, though. Shortly after we published that headline, 1,000 people on Twitter said it wasn't legal. So we'll see.
Only in Germany.
Only in Germany.
Walk us through this story a bit.
Yeah, so it was a really fun story. I was interviewing this bank, a tiny bank, $40 million assets under management, that had scored a pretty cool contract with a state government in Germany. Germany is set up very similar to the U.S. and that they're a federal system, so there's different states and each has their own governments. And one of those states, Hesse, signed a deal with this bank to basically help them reverse launder dirty money. And so the way that happens is these special agents, armed police officers, will break down somebody's door doing what they believe is criminal activity, using Bitcoin to accept payment, maybe launder their money, whatever the case might be. And they literally seize the private keys that gives them access to this Bitcoin. And there's a lot of ways that they can actually do that. But the important part is that it happens, right? So the money moves from the criminal's hands into the government's hands. And there's
no victims, right? There's nobody to compensate or make whole to say, you know,
the victims, I think I'm kind of an advocate of the idea that there's no such thing as a victimless crime, but these are like tertiary and quaternary victims, like very difficult, if impossible, to identify. Like, so for example, if somebody spends $500 to buy methamphetamine from a guy in Arizona, and you seize that $500, who are you going to give it to?
That's true.
Right?
Yep.
And so this isn't necessarily stolen money. This is money that was done for illegal ends.
Earned through illegal activity.
Yeah.
So they put it in the bank, and is it the property of the German government, basically?
So
it's now money, they say?
It's not actually in the bank right away. It starts off in possession of the German government. One of the many interesting things about Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies is you don't actually need a bank to hold it. And so the German government is just doing what we would call self-custody. They are storing these assets on their own. In the United States, when the U.S. Marshals does something similar, which they have done to the tune of 185,000 Bitcoin that has been seized by the U.S. government, they sell it on auction, just like you would a Lamborghini, a Ferrari, a house, any ill-gotten good that the government comes to own. Germany thought that was kind of preposterous because these assets are valued on a market.
Right.
So you don't need to figure out how much the one-of-a-kind 1952 Ferrari is because the Bitcoin markets are established.
Yeah, the market will tell you.
Yeah. So they wanted to sell their assets into a market. But the problem was they had how do I put this? There's a hodgepodge network of private companies whose one of their main jobs is to manage blacklists of cryptocurrency that they believe has been that is associated with criminal activity or maybe sanctioned activity. You know.
So now the government finds themselves on the wrong side. Of the blacklisters.
Yes, perfect way to put it. So the government has all this money. In the case that I was writing about for the story, 100 million euros worth of cryptocurrency. So a lot of crypto, right? But it's all been marked as criminal. It's this informal network of private companies without any regulator or middleman to sort of organize them, all has their own blacklist, and they've all marked it as ill-begotten gains.
If they had decided to do what they do in the States, which is auction it off, wouldn't they have encountered the same challenge from this group of folks?
It's a really good question. I've actually been trying to get a little bit of clarity from the U.S. Marshals Service about what exactly they do. They haven't actually sold Bitcoin at auction in a while, and it's very likely that process has changed. In fact, I did just come underneath possession of a report about this, which I haven't gotten into yet. But yeah, the short answer is that yes. The longer answer is we're not 100% sure exactly how the U.S. government cleans its own seized goods. But so the German government identified this bank in Germany that had
formerly tiny bank.
Formerly tiny, still tiny.
But
yeah.
It's a lot of money.
They're not, interestingly, they don't actually charge for this service. They're buying the assets at a discount from the government and then selling them after they've had them changed from blacklist to whitelist at market price. So then they keep the difference.
It's more like an arbitrage than a profit center.
Exactly. And it also helps the government from like having to deal directly with exchanges, which they don't want to do because it doesn't look good.
Yeah.
So it was actually a really nice setup to the tune of $100 million on the one deal, but they've done a total of 150 million euros, through this reverse money laundering process. Now, the day I was getting ready to publish this story, we got word that an exchange that had done $3 billion worth of illegal and illicit transactions for North Korea, for the Russian military, and for dozens of other criminal and illicit organizations had been shut down by the German government. I was frantically reading through the fine print there, and sure enough, it was my
little bank?
company. Yeah.
So it was